So today is Chapter 2, Section 7, Powers and Exponents. And I want to just start out with saying exponents. We use exponents if you have like repeated multiplication. So exponents are used for repeated multiplication. So there's going to be a whole bunch of real-life applications where you're multiplying by the same number over and over and over. So exponents are used for repeated multiplication. For this, I want to just start out by, well, I guess this first part in purple will just kind of be review. But if you have 4 squared, that's saying 4 times, right? 4 times 4. If I were to do a 4 to the third, that's similar, but it's 4 times 4 times 4. That the exponent, that small number up above, maybe I'll quick label that a second. So the 3 is the exponent. That whole thing together, 4 to the third, is called a power. So in the title here, we're talking about powers. We're talking about something to an exponent. But the exponent tells you how many times something is repeated. Then the other thing there, the 4, that's going to be our base. So this is the base of the exponent. And the base is going to be what's repeated over and over again. I'm going to make a comment, say the base is what's right before the exponent. So the base is going to be what's right before the exponent. Unless there's parentheses. Or maybe that would be a better statement if I put a only in front of it. If you can squeeze a only in front of yours, it would probably make your notes a little bit better. But the base is only going to be what's right before the exponent unless there's parentheses. And this example will help clear things up. What I'm trying to say is if I were to have a 4 times 2 to the third, it's just the 2 that's repeated 3 times. So that 2 to the third is going to be 2 times 2 times 2. So this would be 4 times 2 times 2 times 2. That the 2 is going to be the base of the exponent, not the 4 times 2. If instead you were to have a problem that said something like this, 4 times 2 in parentheses to the third, you could view that one of two ways. You could say, well, 4 times 2, you could combine those, like think of order of operations, you do what's in the parentheses. So this is 8 to the third. Or you could say that's 4 times 2 times itself 3 times. So it'd be 4 times 2 times 4 times 2 times a 4 times 2. That we're doing 4 times 2 3 times. But it's probably easier just to look at it as though 4 times 2 is 8, 8 to the third. So it's this, or you could just take this and say it's 8 to the third. So 8 times 8 times 8 is the faster way. Now this gets us into a thing where books disagree. And I'm having a little trouble with our book because I was taught the other way. The book I used to teach out of is the other way. But if we get a problem that looks like this. So I'm going to say 3 to the fourth. And this is a little bit of repeat. You probably could even just skip it if you wanted to. But 3 to the fourth is 3 times 3 times 3 times 3. And that should make sense. I was always taught that if we have, say, a negative 3 to the fourth, that's going to be what? Negative 3 times negative 3 times negative 3 times negative 3. So I was always taught that that is true. And if you punch this into a calculator, unfortunately, you're going to get a different answer than that. That this negative 3 to the fourth, I was taught that equals 81. If you punch a negative 3 to the fourth into your calculator, and I'll show you how to do that in just a minute, it's going to tell you the answer is negative 81. So now you have to decide, is the calculator right and something's wrong with how I wrote it here, or is the calculator wrong? I've looked it up online. I talked to this guy that I taught next to. This is a brilliant guy. Taught next to him at my old school for years. And he says calculators, what they do is they work right to left. So when they see this problem, they do the 3 to the fourth first, so 3 to the fourth power first, and they kind of view it, I wouldn't write this, but they said the calculator kind of views it like this problem. And I would not write this if I were you. I think it's just going to mess with your head. But it does the 3 to the 4th, and then it applies the negative at the end. So what I was always taught was if you have this in your problem, you could take and put that negative 3 in parentheses, and then your calculator is forced to do the negative 3 times itself 4 times. That's what I'm sticking with, and my plan is for the ones like this that the book gives you that they're going to say the answer is negative 81, I'm just either not going to assign those, or if you say it's 81 or negative 81, I'm not going to mark you wrong if you do what the book says. I don't feel like I can do that and feel justified about it. But I would, if I were you, just learn it as though that negative 3 to the 4th, even without the parentheses, is negative 3 times negative 3 times negative 3 times negative 3. Is that okay? I didn't confuse you like crazy? But maybe just at least store in the back of your mind that some books are saying it differently. Okay. How do you punch in your calculator? If you were to just have like a 5 squared, we could say. To punch that into a calculator, you should hit your 5 button. Most calculators will have a button that have like a little x to the 2nd power. So if you do that, it'll say 5 squared, hit your equals, and it'll tell you the answer is 25. So that's one way to do it if you have a 2nd power. If you have it something else, maybe like a 5 to the 4th or a 5 to the 3rd, that x squared button isn't going to work anymore. That just works if it's squared. So for that, you'll have one of 2 buttons for this like exponent key. So I'll kind of like write one up a little bit and write one down below. So the 2 options, one is going to be, they call it a caret. It's just a little upward arrow. If you think of like your computer keyboard, it's shift and then the 6. So it's the little upward arrow above it. Graphing calculators will have that symbol. Some scientific calculators do. Other calculators, scientific ones, will have a little x to the y button like that. So you just have to look at your calculator and figure out which one it is. Usually those buttons are going to be over on the left-hand side. If you look at that left-hand column, you'll probably see it there. But if I wanted to do 5 to the 4th, I do 5, then one of those 2 exponent keys, then type in 4 for my exponent, and then hit your equals. That should give you 625, which is 5 to the 4th. Okay on those? So that is the first half of the lesson. But the second section of the notes is order of operations. And I'm going to just start out by writing the P, please, excuse, my dear or my dead Aunt Sally. And the new part, up until now we haven't done anything with the E. We haven't done anything with the exponents. But now we're going to start messing around with the exponents as well. So I'm going to do 2 examples that have exponents in it. And my first one is 5 and then a parenthesis, 8 plus 2, and the parenthesis. All that's going to be squared, and then minus 12. Okay, so to do this, we start with our parentheses. So we have to first simplify what's inside the parentheses. And 8 plus 2 gives us 10. And I'm going to have 5 times that. I'm still going to put my parentheses in, but you don't need to for that step. So I have 5 times 10 squared minus 12. All right, then the new thing, so we can't simplify in the parentheses anymore. So now we have exponents next. 10 squared is 100. Nice, it's 10 times 10 or 100. So I have 5 times 100 minus the 12. So we did our parentheses, we did our exponents, now we multiply and divide. 5 times 100 is 500. Take away the 12 for a total of
488.
Perfect, 488. So as you do the steps, you just have to be mindful of, keep going back to that order of operations for what the next step should be. Any questions on that example? Okay. One more example. So my next one, I don't have the parentheses, but I have a 8 divided by 2. 8 divided by 2 times 3 minus 3 to the 4th. And in your homework on a quiz, you could even just real small on the side somewhere write out that, please excuse my dear Aunt Sally, if you think that's going to help you. So parentheses, we're looking at the P, there's no parentheses. So exponents, first we do the 3 to the 4th. So that's going to be 81. So my problem becomes 8 divided by 2 times 3 minus 81. And especially on quizzes and tests, show your work. But homework, you should be showing your work for these on the homework too. All right, so we did parentheses, did exponents. Now we're up to multiplying and dividing. So here, order matters. You have to go from left to right. You can't do this 2 times 3 first. You'll get the wrong answer. Instead, we have to start with 8 divided by 2. 8 divided by 2 is 4, so it's a 4 times 3 minus 81. And then 4 times 3 is 12 minus 81. And now our answer is going to be positive or negative? Negative. Anybody see what it's going to be? I guess we could say
69.
Nice, negative 69. And if you're looking at that thinking, oh boy, I hope I don't see that on a quiz, here's maybe what Abby did in her head. This at least would get you to the correct answer that she had. I start out at 12, and I need to go left 81 because I'm subtracting, right? So this is how I reason through it. I think, okay, I'm going to pass 0 because I'm only starting 12 above 0. So I say, well, how many numbers of that 81 does it take me to get down to 0? Do you agree it's going to be 12? So 12 gets me to 0, but then the question is, what's left? How much do you have left of the 81? So you could do 81 minus 12, and then you'd have a 9, and then you had to change that to a 7 to get your 11. But then you'd have a 6. So you know you have 69 more to go right there. So the final answer then you'd end up being down at negative 69. A lot of people don't do that. They just know they have to subtract the numbers and it's that many negative. If your brain works that way, go for it. I just wanted to show it this way so it's not like magic. But we okay on ones like those? Okay. Then the very last thing is really just a statement. And we'll look at why this is the case later, but it ties into that we're talking about exponents. I'm going to put in parentheses, I'm going to say any number but 0. I'm going to write that in parentheses. So any number but 0, and my parentheses, to the 0 power equals, anyone know it? 1. I wrote it. Didn't give you time to answer. So if you were to do a 5 to the 0 on your calculator, it's going to say 1. 7 to the 0, 1. If you do your negative 7, but because it's negative, probably should put it in parentheses, to the 0, it's going to give you 1. Pi to the 0 would equal 1. The only thing that doesn't work is 0 to the 0. If you punch 0 to the 0 power in your calculator, it's going to give you an error. And I can explain why if you would like.